Hi, I'm pleased that you're here to learn about the practice of immigration law. It's a really exciting time in the field. It seems like hardly a day goes by without some new development in either the law or immigration policy, and it's certainly a topic that is in the news. Immigration is a hot topic because so much is encompassed in the field. There are other practice areas. The two big ones are obviously family law and business law, but also other ones, issues and practice areas such as human rights and criminal law, employment law, and many more that we'll talk about in a few moments. It's also an international practice, and so you have clients that are spanning every corner of the globe, which makes it really exciting and enriching. And then lastly, it's a practice where you can not only represent really interesting clients, but you have the opportunity to help them. You can really make significant and often life changing impacts on their lives. So, what I want to do in just a few minutes is walk you through how you can best use your time here at SMU Law School to prepare yourself for a career in immigration law. So we'll start with the obvious, which is we have a course in immigration law, which you should absolutely take. And we also have a really interesting, somewhat novel course in immigration practice and advocacy that's taught by one of our local immigration judges, Judge Nugent, that you should absolutely plan to take if you plan to practice in this field. There are a number of other stand up courses that immigration law relates to. So, a lot of immigration law, for example, is administrative law. So, I would highly encourage that you take that course. And also things like federal courts, constitutional law, and international law. As you might imagine, those areas are often um, at play when immigration lawyers are practicing, whether in immigration court or again in federal courts. So, moving down, depending on the type of specific immigration practice you are interested in, there may be some other courses that you would consider taking. So, as I mentioned before, immigration law, a lot of immigration law is family based immigration. About 50% of the immigration into this country comes through family members. And so, thinking about the intersection of family law and immigration law is really, really important. You want to understand how a family is formed, how a family is dissolved, what makes up a family, because those things have really significant implications in immigration practice. Employment law is another big one, as I mentioned earlier. The other half of immigration, migration to this country, comes through employment, through businesses who are petitioning for workers to come to this country. And so you want to understand how businesses work, right? So taking BE, if there's specialized areas, a lot of the migration happens in the tech sector. And so perhaps you want to consider taking an IP course so you can familiarize yourself with some of the language, the terminology, the law relevant to those fields. Criminal law is another really important area. The intersection of criminal law and immigration law is incredibly complex, it's incredibly nuanced. And so, understanding the impact of criminal convictions, for example, on somebody's immigration status, understanding detention is something that immigration lawyers do day in and day out. So, taking advanced criminal law, criminal procedure courses like that will really help you better be able to represent your clients in the field. There are a number of other courses as well. There's special provisions in the immigration code for juveniles. And so thinking perhaps if that's something you're interested in, taking a course in juvenile justice. And then last in this small area, the other thing that is worth thinking about is if you don't necessarily want to be a litigator, right? You don't want to be representing either individuals or corporations who are seeking to help people immigrate to this country. One of the other things that you could do in immigration law is policy work. So taking a course in legislation could be really beneficial to that career path. So moving on, another important thing for immigration lawyers, and quite honestly all lawyers, to be able that all lawyers need to be able to do is research and write well. So you've obviously taken a course in legal research and writing, but the more practice you can get in doing legal research, in doing different kinds of writing, the better positioned you'll be to be an immigration lawyer, and quite honestly any kind of lawyer out there in practice. So I'd strongly consider taking advanced legal research, in particular for immigration law, because it is such a complex and nuanced area. They say that the immigration code is as complex as the tax code. And unlike some other fields where you find a lot of answers to legal questions by looking at cases or looking at statutes, immigration law is full of regulations, internal memos, and figuring out how to find that guidance can be critically important. Other courses that we offer here that again would be good for any student, advanced legal writing and editing. That's important because in immigration law, you're not necessarily just writing briefs and memos, the things that you've already had practice doing, but you'll be writing declarations for clients, you'll be writing affidavits, you'll be writing letters. And so getting practice in those standard things in legal writing, but also some other ways that lawyers write day to day can be really, really important. We offer a course in international and foreign legal research, which for immigration law could potentially be critically important. Sometimes it's very important to understand the law of the country that your client is coming from. So understanding how to do that can be critical for your client. And then last but not least, if you're really interested in this area, you might want to think about taking either an edited research or a general writing course in this area. Again, it gets you more steeped in the law, have you understand a specific area, and also could be a great writing sample to send to a potential employer in the field. The last thing I wanted to talk about in terms of course offerings is experiential education. There is no substitute for actually doing this work. Being able to say to an employer, not only do I care about immigration law, I've taken all these classes, but I actually have some real life practice. I've talked to an immigrant, I've interviewed them, I've done a real case for one of these people. That's an incredibly compelling thing for an employer to be able to hear. And it's also a good way for you to really test out whether this is something that you're interested in doing. So we have a number of clinics here at the law school that work in this area. The clinic that I run, the Hunter Center, we focus on immigration work for women and girls who have been subjected to some form of gender-based violence, typically domestic violence, sexual abuse, or human trafficking. I also run a program, the Family Immigration Detention Clinic, where students have the opportunity to go to a family immigration detention center in South Texas over spring break and get experience again working with that particular population. And our civil clinic at the law school also oftentimes might be able to represent immigrants in these types of cases. We have a government and public interest externship program where you can, for credit, spend time in either a government agency or a local nonprofit. And there are a number of them here in the Dallas area who are working again with real clients on these issues. And then again, it's not quite the same as representing a real person, but if you are interested in being a litigator, doing things like moot court, mock trial, trial advocacy will help you get more comfortable in the courtroom and be able to go to immigration court and represent clients. So the last thing I wanted to talk about, which is not necessarily related to our curriculum, but it does have to do with other opportunities here in the Dallas area to get experience in immigration law and talk to practitioners who are doing this day in and day out. The first is the American Immigration Lawyers Association, AILA, which is a nationwide organization representing that's an agency where thousands of immigration lawyers are members of, and that organization AILA has a number of really wonderful resources. There's a student membership for only $50 a year that I highly encourage you to take advantage of. There's some great networking and learning opportunities there. The Dallas Bar Association has an immigration law section that's really active, and you can start going to CLEs. You can start again learning and networking with some of those attorneys here in the the area doing the work. And then the Dallas Hispanic Bar Association, as well as the South Asian Bar Association, are often really involved in immigration initiatives in town. And finally, last but not least, I just wanted to mention a really important student organization, the Immigration Lawyers Student Organization, or ILSA, for which I'm the faculty advisor. That the organization, again, brings in a number of speakers where you can hear more about what immigration lawyers, oftentimes judges, are doing, what they're thinking. And then importantly, they host and make available a number of volunteer opportunities. Again, you can meet immigrants, you can help them, you can work with them, even as a law student, to get a feel for what this work is really like. So again, thank you so much for your interest, and I hope that you end up being one of our awesome immigration law alums in the future.